I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. If I don't know you, I am Julie Fiesel. I'm the Director of Communication and Government Relations here at the Consortium of State School Boards Associations. And I call myself a recovering school board member because I served on the school board for 16 years. And when I first saw this information that we're going to be showing you all today, I said, wow, as a school district leader, I needed this is the information that I really needed to have. And so Brian Stevens, who's the co-founder and CEO of CAISA K12, is going to do the presentation, and I'm going to chime in. We'll be kind of conversational. But Brian is in his company. They are a partner with COSSBA, which is always great. And he is an advocate, champion, and a steadfast supporter of the public school system, which we highly, highly appreciate. And Kesa, as I said, is a partner with COSSBA. If you were at our federal advocacy conference this past September, Brian spoke during the reception. And today he's going to be leading us through their most recent parent and guardian poll so that we know better what the attitudes are around public education and then the choices that are being presented in many of our states. And if we do have time at the end, I'm going to touch on the Educational Choice for Children's Act, which is a new federal quote unquote voucher program that takes effect in 2027. And so that's going to be a federal program that we will now be dealing with. But if we have time, we'll get into that. But I know everybody's here to hear Brian's presentation. So Brian, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Julian. Appreciate you all being here. And thank you for being members of COSSBA, a great organization to advocate for public schools. And that's why we love to be a teammate with them. So I think for context purposes, it's important to note that we run this poll for our own benefit. We need the data, and we started tracking this. And Julie, the first year was 2017. Julie asked me to go back and do
I asked you that.
Do a deep dive, and we went back. The first poll was in 2017, so we can get some context there on how things have changed over time. Clearly, not all the same questions were asked, but the ones that were the same, we can show you those data points. And so I'm going to kind of nerd up with everybody here. We're gonna kind of do a deep dive into some top lines on this. And if you have questions, Caroline, our producer, is here, and put those in the chat box. There's a chat box, right, Caroline?
Yeah.
And if they're timely, she'll interrupt, because that's what she interrupts me all the time. She'll interrupt and ask that question. And if we don't get to all the questions, we will work to capture those and email you responses for everybody's benefit at the end. So we'll do our best to do the Q&A and as we roll. Makes sense, Julie?
Yes. And are we recording this in case people want to go back?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We have a recording, and we'll send that recording out, and that'll also go out on our socials, also CAISA K12. And that's the last slide of this, so you guys can see that also. So anyway, so we do this poll annually because we recruit students back to public schools. And so we have to have the data on it's always caregivers, because a lot of times it is grandparents. We say parents, but parent can be a caregiver, an aunt and uncle in many situations. And we like to understand what they're thinking so that we can actively recruit them to public schools. So this is a national data point, so it's not individual, like one particular area, but it is broken down into regions. And I'll hit some regional data with this also, so you can tell where there are regional differences. Okay, so we'll hit a little bit of that. And if I find any examples that we've done polls for like individual schools and school districts, I'll kind of touch on some of those examples, or if you have questions in particular areas of the country, we've done this in a lot of states. All right, so once again, I'm not going to read all these slides to you. The goal is to clearly understand what the decision maker, which are the caregivers, the parents, are they likely to change? If so, what are the factors they're considering? And how should we react to all this information? So, all right, so methodology, I'm not going to bore you too much for this, but this is a good solid poll. It was done in October of 2025. We run it every year in that October window. best time to get results, and then we can kind of release it like we do in January after those results are known. So it's a plus or minus 4.9%, 95% level of confidence overall. And these top lines I'm going to hit as we cover slides, but they're there on the deck if you want to download it. So everything we're going to talk about is summarized for you on these top lines. So just remember that if you want to go back and refer to it. All right. So let's get into some of the findings. All right. So the first baseline, and you'll see this with all kind of polls, like what's your overall satisfaction? That just kind of establishes a baseline. And if you're running polls and surveys in your community, you also always, how satisfied are you? Now, satisfied does not mean, and you're going to see that unfold, it doesn't mean they won't change. Somebody can be very satisfied with their breakfast restaurant and doesn't mean they're not going to go try another breakfast restaurant. But if that satisfaction is really low, if that overall score in your district is low, you got to fix that, because that is certainly a baseline. 85% is plus or minus every year since 2017, Julie.
Great. I was going to ask if you
Yeah,
had any
yeah.
baseline for that.
I jumped on it a
Yeah.
little fast for you. Is we have seen districts poll, plus or minus. Remember, this is plus or minus 5%, so think 80 to 90%. That's a good, solid standard
Hmm.
score. People are satisfied, but it's this number, this 43%, very satisfied, is kind of the what I call like the passion index. And so it's 85% are satisfied or very satisfied. But what we have seen is this 43% number used to be higher for public schools.
Mm.
So that's drifted about 8 to 9 points down, and they've kind of moved into the satisfied category. Now, I would say this, if you run a poll and you get this kind of breakdown, doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. A lot of times, the satisfied or very satisfied is a question of what they're seeing in the news, what they're seeing in PTA groups.
Mhm.
It's media. It's all this other messages they get every day that can kind of influence this. I just want you to be aware of that number. But if they're 43%, they're not likely to change schools. But
Mhm.
it's this 42% and these other categories that are more likely. So when you're running a poll, you see that satisfaction at 85%. Look now at this passion index, satisfied versus unsatisfied. Does that make sense, Julie? All right,
Yes.
great. So that's a baseline, and it's been pretty consistent year over year. But now we're going to get in some inconsistencies, some real trend lines as we go. So then we say, okay, and we've asked this question since 2017. So very consistent, worded the same exact way. Is okay, you're satisfied, whatever, but are you open to changing schools if you hear the right messaging, if you hear the right things? And we're going to get into what are those things in a few more slides, right? 70% are open to exploring other options. 70%. Now, I pulled the historic data for you, Julie.
Hmm.
You ready? Do you want to guess what it was in 2017? Do you want to play
In
Bueller?
2017, I would say that it would have been like under 50%.
Okay, Julie is smart and wise. It's 42%.
Hmm.
And in 2017, 2018, 2019, all stayed around that 40% number.
Hmm.
It was very just click, click. I mean, 40% of the people are actively like looking, and that really impacts our budgets. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean they're going to leave, but they are on, they're shopping. They're looking for a deal. They're looking for something to satisfy whatever their family needs are. And so the bureaucracy, not bureaucracy, monopoly of public schools, it started to drift in the 90s. And I'm not going to bore everyone with the history. They probably already know it. And school choice started getting on the rise, but it wasn't in every
Hmm.
state, and it wasn't in the media as much. But then we started to see a real uptick during and after COVID. Obviously,
Hmm.
it was that COVID push where people really had to start exploring options with homeschools and charter schools and things like that. So the numbers started jumping up. But this year in particular, 2025, 2026 school year, it jumped up another 10 points. It got over 50s, and it kind of sat there in those over 50 numbers. And then this past year really kind of popped. And I would attribute that. This is Brian's opinion, but I've been
Hmm.
doing polls for 20 years. I've been doing polls for 20 years. A lot of that is a direct reflection of all the news that's been pouring out in the last year and a half. And so
Right.
that will make everyone realize that options are available. Okay. So just kind of remember that that's probably why it popped, because they know.
Yes. And as a communications person, by training and a communicator on my school board, I felt like this is the information that school leaders needed to know because this 69.5% is increasing. And so through the school district's messaging and their actions, they need to know that they're under the microscope because there are more options out there. And of course, our phrase is I choose public education or I support public education. And so we want to make sure that you all have the data that shows you that, yeah, you might think you have a great contained group. There are every year, and now with this federal voucher program, we see choice choices in the educational
Yeah.
fields. So,
And the one thing that was alarming to me, well, alarming, I don't like to use words like alarming when it comes to data. A real top line point that jumped out at me is we go back one slide. 43% are very satisfied. 43% were very satisfied, but 70% are still considering. That means you have
mhm,
people in the 43% category, if you cross tab that are still open to change. So even if people say, I'm very satisfied with my school, I'm very satisfied with how things are going, doesn't mean they won't leave you. I mean, this is kind of the I really like my car. I really like my breakfast restaurant. I love it. We're dedicated to this breakfast restaurant. We go there every week. We're loyal. Yeah, I'm still open to, get trying a couple new places. And that's what's really changed in the last couple of years, Julie, is that even though they love your school, you've, and the outcome to this, what I would recommend, like your pro tip is you still got to ask the ones that are very satisfied to come back. Like,
mhm.
don't neglect those people just because they're very satisfied. They're getting catered to by a lot of competition. So go out there and ask them to come back. Please have your principal stand outside. We want you to come back next year. We love you. We appreciate you, and that way you'll keep the very satisfied and the satisfied people. So just be aware that even though they're very satisfied, they're still open to change. All right. So let's keep tacking. All
Mhm.
right. So the next one, and these are new slides these are new questions that we've asked in the last couple of years. So I don't have historic data on vouchers. Okay. In 2017, school choice was a little bit
Yeah.
different animal, right? And so we started asking voucher choices 2 years ago. And so it's are you interested in vouchers in your community? Do you support them? Are you behind them? And 74% of the people say they want more school options or vouchers in their state. And I think this is clearly they're seeing this in the media, they're seeing this in the news, Julie. And uh, I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but I attribute that to once a monopoly's gone and the can's popped, people love choices. Americans like choices. They want to have options. And now that that's out, they want more options. They want more food choices when they go down the grocery store. And as you know, so by trade, I'm an industrial psychologist and a lawyer, so I'm a mega nerd. And so I look at this through that lens of buying choices, right? And I don't see this number going down, Julie.
Mhm.
What?
And I will say that, putting on my COSSBA hat, we always advocate for increased funding for K-12 education at the federal level. And so when we see that money being taken away from public school grants or programming that we have had for years, and it's going to another educational realm, like a voucher, a private school that accepts vouchers, or a community school, which is a charter school, that's we want to make sure that there is still money the same or more for public education, and it's not, being taken away from what was promised to our members.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's great. And I would say if you don't have a big push for vouchers in your state yet,
Right.
the word is yet. All right. And I think that they're being done differently in a lot of states. And I'm sure that Julie can cover that in more,
Hmm.
webinars in the future and how it might impact individual states. But we're seeing this, and they're all structured a little bit differently. But I think they're coming. I think more are going to come because people want more choices, not less choices. So just be aware that I think this
And
number.
that's why we want to make your public school the choice for parents and guardians. So, um, So go ahead, Brian. I
No,
just
no,
put that in
I think
there.
that that's right. I mean, that's our entire mission. We only
Yeah.
represent public schools. We only work with public schools, across the United States because this is what we believe is the right educational opportunity, the best. But Americans like choices, and so just be aware
Hmm.
that that's not going to go away. And so I would encourage people, instead of being anti anything, they are
Hmm.
for competing, right? And Julie and I were talking. Anti, well, school choice is out. The can's been popped, so it's going to grow. So just be aware that that's not going to go away.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
Make your school district the school district of choice.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's great. And they are.
Hmm.
They should be. Okay. So let me keep nerding out here. I thought this was a really interesting factoid. Do you support or oppose the use of public funds through vouchers or similar programs to help parents pay for private school tuition, et cetera? Just to kind of see, we're asking the question kind of multiple ways to see if there's any disparity in their belief systems. It's one thing to say, do you believe in this? It's another thing to say, do you believe in this enough to use taxpayer money? Like that's another
Hmm.
added value. And that's once again kind of that passion index. I like to know how passionate people are about it. But you see the data is about the same. 68% are like, yeah, it's totally okay to use public funds for any type of voucher. So a few years ago, just 2 years ago, there was a disparity in this, right? They weren't quite lined up. So I thought, well, maybe people are a little second guessing themselves. And it's, well, you guys could go to have all the choice you want. We're just not going to pay for it. Now, what the voters, the people, parents are generally saying, and these are all parents, by the way, they, in order to complete this poll, they had to have a K-12 child. Okay. So these
Hmm.
are clearly our target market. Is they were like, no, we're okay with using funds now. And that number is right within the delta, plus or minus 4.9%, right?
Hmm.
So very similar. So you're going to have vouchers and they're okay with using state money to pay for it. So we got to get ready for that, right? And that's a change. Um, all right. This was another one that I was gauged up on to try to determine, well, you're okay with using vouchers maybe, and you're okay with using tax money, but do you think there's a benefit and harm to most students? And this is the thing that kind of jumped out at me, is that 38% of parents believe that vouchers will improve education overall. That's not over 50%. All right. So remember,
Hmm.
70% plus are looking and want more choices. Only 40% are saying that vouchers will actually improve the education for all. 55% are saying it's going to harm some students. It's going to, like parents are like, yeah, it could probably harm some students, but they want it anyway. All right. So I don't like pushing a boulder up a hill. And I just kind of wanted to know this information. If you're talking with your legislatures, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of think it breaks the social contract a little bit if you think it's going to harm other children. But this is what the parents said. It's like, yeah, it could harm some kids, but we still want it. Just kind of keep that in your arsenal. I don't know. We never did any focus groups on this, Julie. Like
Yeah.
I can't dig into the overall belief system. And um, I'm hoping that this question wasn't as flat as the way I'm taking it. Like, I'm hoping in a focus group, if we ran focus groups where you can really dig into people's beliefs, that maybe they're suggesting that I don't understand what the harm is they see, right? So I can't say that the harm is like actual harm, or maybe I get scared about children being left behind, obviously, out of the 50 million. There's a
Hmm.
lot of kids in need. And so we just don't know what the value is. So don't surmise that we have a definition of harm here. Scientifically, we have no definition of what they mean by harm. I think in future ones, we may try to ask that and try to get more clarity on what do they mean by harm, because that can mean something different to everybody. And you'll see that again on what parents want. Yeah, it depends on the parent. Okay. So don't try to jump to any conclusions on this. It's just something interesting to track for next year. Okay. So
Yep.
all right. All right. So now this question we've asked since 2017. Um, um, and it's been really flat since 2019. Um, Parents want three things from their schools. Three things, and it's always these top two are always the same. They want their children safe and they want their child successful. It
Hmm.
is now. I have seen this, Julie. Every single district, safety means something different. Success means something different. And safety, when the kids are little, I would never, once again, I'm a lawyer. Don't promise you're going to keep them safe, but your work safety is a top priority. It's something you're working on. If you're not checking IDs when they walk in and you're letting people slide, that doesn't feel safe. But you don't have to
Hmm.
have, you know, uh, metal detectors and all that stuff. I've never seen parents want that, but if it doesn't feel secure, if you don't feel like they care about, this is a real feeling. The safety thing's always been a feeling. Do we feel safe, or is the media just talking about how bad everything is, right? And or the news, or social media or whatnot. And so safety, the younger the child is, the more that clearly the parent always wants to focus more on safety for the little babies than the older kids. But safety is important, right?
Right.
Do you have crossing guards out there? That's a safety thing, right?
Hmm.
It's appearance of safety. So you always want to focus on that, and every single district should be doing that. The second one, and sometimes these two flop, by the way, Julie, all right? They're always one
Yeah.
and two, is success. Now, let me go back. Safety could have been bullying, it could have been gun violence, it could have been
Hmm.
COVID. So you got to watch the news too and make sure that you're directly answering safety concerns that are radiating throughout society, right? So now success, something different for everybody. Um, I mean, it could be that the child's going to college. It could be a trade school. It could be that the child just moves out of their basement when they're an adult and get a job and work. Or the military, like it was for me.
Military. Yeah.
Yeah, and so those are all degrees of safety. And what I would really ask you to do in every district is you got to find out what your community thinks. What are their standards of safety? What are their standards of success? And it's not going to be a one fit shoe, but when we do individual polls for districts, Julie, so they can really hone in on their enrollment or their communications efforts, I want to real. You don't have to ask them if they care about success. They do. You really need to get them to define what success is in that community. Kind of like we didn't define what harm was. So I
Hmm.
can't guess. I can't even surmise what that is,
Yeah.
but I can tell you that success are those things. We want our kids to be healthy adults. We want them to be successful. Maybe it's just we want them to graduate, but I would get a deeper dive into those two things so you can really be targeted to keep your families. And then the third category, man, it changes every year. It changes. I've never seen curriculum academic programs uh, in the last like 7 or 8 years. I've seen extracurricular activities, and in every district it is very nuanced. The third category is always very nuanced. And I would say from a scientific standpoint, it's real important to keep it to three main items of
Yeah.
communication. And I think the communicators are on here, the comms people, I'd say that so they know that I'm not a crazy person, that I know it too, is the human brain can only retain about 3 points of solid information before they use it or lose it. You can look
Hmm.
at your phone number in 3 blocks, social security number in 3 blocks. Is get it down to a tight three things. But what is success to them? What is safety to them? And what is this third bucket? I don't know what it is for you.
Right.
This year's curriculum academic programs, and I would guess, it's a guess again, Julie, is that this is also based on school choice,
Yes.
and they're saying flexibility of school models. And does that make sense, Julie?
Oh, yeah. And I was going to say, as a communications person, these are the three key issues. I mean, I can design blogs on these or social media posts, or even reach out to a local news station and say, hey, we've got this great academic program that we want to tell people about because it's really unique. Like in
Yeah.
a school board I was on, they had an equestrian program for high schoolers. And so that isn't offered, in any other school district in Central Ohio, where I live. And so, if you want to tout those things that make you unique, you want to tout the student success, and you really want to drive home that safety message, and then these are three good ways to make your school district the school district of choice for the parents and guardians in your area.
Julie, I haven't really thought about this before, but the third block is really, like you just said, the district's competitive advantage.
Yes.
And maybe the parents don't even know exactly what they want of the third thing, but if you have something that's special and unique, I remember I was in Texas, very small rural district. I met the superintendent. I said, I'll swing by and just come up there and see a beautiful drive, 2 hours north of Dallas or something. And he's like, we don't have a third thing. We don't have anything cool going on. We're a little teeny district, got like 3,000 students. And I go, what is that thing going overhead? And it was a drone. I go, why is this drone flying over? This was 8 years ago. And drones, what is that? Now it's very
Hmm.
common. But he goes, oh, well, we teach the kids how to use drones. We have a drone club because we have these massive warehouses and we teach them to use drones. And I go, what kind of job is that? What kind of income is that? He
Hmm.
goes, oh, it's back at fifty, sixty
Huge.
thousand dollars. And I
Yes.
go, that's amazing. Tell people about that. That is so cool. And so he just hadn't thought about how cool that was. And then I went to another school and it was an elementary and it was very bland and it was very stark and very sterile. And they changed one thing. They let kids put their drawings all over the walls and it was so colorful and happy
Hmm.
the next time. It just made people feel like it was a little school, and people wanted to feel that emotional connection. And that was a real competitive advantage. The kids had drawings and had a big library day. And there's all those things are really cool. And I would say don't assume that the caregivers know anything about what makes you awesome.
Right.
Just never make that assumption.
Or your taxpayers who are paying taxes to your public school. I feel that that's that's a big miss for some school districts is that they're not telling their story to the taxpayers. But
That's a good
the
point.
parents may or may not, they might know about this great drone program, but the taxpayers, who don't have kids in the buildings anymore, you constantly need to be communicating with them.
And there's two adages to remember. If once you're sick of telling your story, they're just starting
Yeah.
to listen. Just always remember
Mhm.
that you're going to be exhausted of saying the same thing. We did a poll for a district in New Jersey, and the parents really wanted a lot of extracurricular activities. Like they said that was a main drive. The schools are safe. There's just a
Mhm.
great school district, solid. And it and he goes, "What do you mean the parents they don't know? We have 183 extracurricular activities." I go, "They don't know. Why don't they know?" I go, "Because it's your job to be the communicator.
Yeah.
They're not going to go to your website. You just got to keep pushing those things." So anyway, they
Mhm.
since corrected that, and it was awesome. 183 extra equestrian, I don't know, drone programs. All those
Yeah.
things are really neat. And so I get pumped up when I see individual schools and how cool they're doing. So don't be
Hmm.
afraid to share it, like Julie said.
Yeah, don't hold back. Let people know. I mean, those
Please.
local newspapers have died off, but there are still some out there and they are looking for news to cover. And then when they cover this great program or a student success, you put it on your social media and you share it out. You have your superintendent do a podcast on it. I mean, there are so many more ways to get news and information. You just got to make sure you're targeting the right audience.
Yeah, I do see a good trend with a lot of local media stations where they're trying to do good news segments now.
Hmm.
And it kind of goes against the whole if it bleeds, it leads, and the death and destruction to get
Yeah.
attention that we spent. But these good news media segments, you've got good things to share. To Julie's point, please share them. If you
Hmm.
don't know what's awesome, I'll tell you in like 20 minutes of talking with you, man. There's so many cool things out there. Julie will find them for you. All right, so let's keep rolling. All right. Now we get into the not just, this is a lot more tight question of not, are you satisfied? Are you considering? But what is the likelihood of you actually switching? Uh, it's real important in psychology if you don't, and correct polling. You ask a question slightly different ways, you'll get slightly different answers. And you got to
Hmm.
really be worried about pushing the audience, which is called a straw poll, to one answer or another. And I like to ask questions slightly different ways to make sure the data is as secure as possible, right? Because
Hmm.
once again, we have to use this data to recruit students. So we pay for this ourselves for this in the districts we work with because we have to know it for our own benefit, right? So I want you to have trust in this. So when you run a poll, make sure that whoever's doing it is kind of asking the question a series of different ways. So this one is not, are you thinking about it? Are you considering it? But what is like, are you really likely to do it? Ooh, all right. So um 40%, and this is 2024, 2025, it's plus or minus right in that same window. So it's a delta. Statistically speaking, it's the exact same for 2024, 2025. This is a 10 to 15% push since 2017 overall. I mean, the people that were likely to actually switch were much more, not just considering, but likely to switch was always in the 20s and 30s. And it's now it's in the last couple of years, well, since COVID, it's drifted into the 40s. And these are the people, as you can see here, very likely they're gone. They're going to switch. They're going to switch. Now, this is not just public school parents. These are all parents. These are all K-12 parents. So that also
Hmm.
means people in those other options are thinking about changing. And I mean, our company only gets paid for students we actively recruit that show up by your count date. Like that's so it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the kid because they're in public schools. It's a win for the district. They get more money and then we get more money. So we have to put our money where our mouth is, right?
Hmm.
And so the fact that now everyone's kind of considering their choices on both sides, kind of cool. We used to have 45 of the 50 million kids all in public school 30, 40 years ago. Now it's about 30 million. But that 15 million swing now is back in play. And you can recruit those back, want to keep what you've
Hmm.
got, and you can keep them back. So remember, people are going to be moving around. Just you want them to move to you. And so I think that's an opportunity, really, not just a scary 40, 43% number, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think there's an opportunity in that to get back um, kids that left 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or
Hmm.
started off in another school and now you can get it back. So this is a good number, but this number has been trending up. People are aware of choice. And I think that just continues to confirm people get that they have options now, right? All right. So, um, once again, another test question. You said you wanted vouchers. You said you were open to using taxpayer money to do it. If you were offered a voucher, would you just say no? So this is kind of the antithesis. And this just confirms that only 23% said they wouldn't use it. So if they get these vouchers coming down the pipeline, and I hopefully we'll have to, I want to make sure we have time to get
Hmm.
to the 2027 bills and all those things, is they're going to use them. Don't think people aren't going to use them. They're going to use them because I had a couple legislatures say, "Oh, they're not going to use them." Oh no, they're going to use them. So I mean, just in this number is this is the first year we asked
Yeah.
this particular question. So I
I
don't know.
know what we have seen in my home state of Ohio, and because they have tracked this, is that the majority of vouchers are because Ohio just went through a voucher um, increase. Like it's opening up to all students, not just really by income or the academic performance of the school district that they're in. Now basically everybody qualifies for a state voucher if they want to choose one. But what they have found is that the people or the students who are choosing those vouchers were already in private schools.
Oh,
So that's why in Ohio, when they estimated how much it was going to cost to expand the voucher program, they didn't take into a they didn't consider that the students who are already there were going to be using this money too. So they under budgeted for what they thought it was going to cost the state.
so Julie, I did a podcast. Our podcast, by the way, is Public Education Unfiltered. If you want to look that up on
Hmm.
Amazon or whatever, I did a podcast about that data, and I'm going to try not to get the numbers wrong, but there was a study that was done in Louisiana and I think it was New Jersey, two states that have had school choice for a long time and vouchers for a long time, and it was like 80 something percent were the exact same people that were already
Hmm.
not in public schools that took advantage of the voucher. It didn't add a lot of new players to it. To your
Right.
point, I'll try to find those numbers and maybe when we send an email out summarizing, we can link to that particular podcast because that was exactly to your point. Because I was like, I wonder if they're going to use it. Let's find out if
Hmm.
anyone did a study, and they did do a study, and it didn't get a lot of new players out there. So the money was just literally moved to people that didn't need it the year before. To your point.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, great
Yeah.
point, great point. And I would say this, I want to clarify. Yeah, 2017, this number was 32%.
Mm.
So you got a 10 point adjustment.
Yeah.
I had to write them down on my little sheet of paper, Julie, for you, for the 2017. All right. So,
Hmm.
views on vouchers. Once again, I'm just trying to get a feel on this question. I don't think we have any real big action items or top lines based on this question, so I'll probably move on. But it's they're kind of they're saying they're not going to benefit all families. I mean, there's an open admittance across the board, and the demographics of this are very split, in states and regional. We want to get a view of everyone's values to this because everyone are people that you want to serve. And it's they're still saying we don't think it's going to benefit everyone equally. We think there's going to be unequal benefits, and they're still okay with it. So I
Hmm.
I don't think that the argument of this isn't fair to everyone is going to make people change their minds. It makes me a little sad, but that is the
Hmm.
truth. They want choice now. So I've just heard a lot of district school board members over the last couple of years go, but this isn't fair. It's not equal. It's not level. I get it. I get it. In your view, it's not. Even in your constituents' views, it's not. People are still okay with it. Okay, so so take it for what you will. All right.
Hmm.
Um, all right. I
And
I will say we
Yeah,
did have a question, and I was waiting to ask it
sure.
because I knew this slide was coming. Somebody asked if all schools should be, if we asked if all schools should be held to the same standard.
Oh,
So,
dun, 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 dun.
yes, we did ask.
I had to
Oh,
know
great tie
that.
in there, Caroline. Yep.
Caroline, I had to know that. And whoever asked that question is bright and intelligent and one step ahead of me. I don't like that part. Is you know this is going to sound so bougie. My latest book that I'm speaking on to schools and conferences is about creating a level playing field because as it stands now, some states it's better than other states, but the voucher programs don't have the same rules, right?
Hmm.
Now, like just standardized testing, real quick. You can be for or against it. Like I'm going to be agnostic as to that right now.
Hmm.
But if you're for it, then how come you don't require people that take government money to do standardized testing? Because you don't.
Right.
And if you're against it, how come you require public schools to do it? So that is not an equitable accountability tool. It's not
Hmm.
level. And yeah, the book is we need a level playing field so that we can adequately present a choice to parents and then they can decide, or caregivers so they can decide. And so I wanted to know, Julie, am I alone in this? Am I the only one that thinks it should be like a competitive field where everyone
Yeah.
has the same rules? Where like this football team has 11 players and this one has
Hmm.
three? I mean, that doesn't seem fair to me. And do people care about fairness? Clearly, we found out they don't care that it impacts children differently, or at least a majority of people don't. So, do they think that we need oversight? And I think this is a real win for advocacy groups, COSSBA, double your membership dues, that you need people out there advocating for you. But 82% of the people, that's a massive number, by the way, in
Hmm.
polls, say,
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, we should kind of have the same full oversight, flexible oversight, but we want the same rules for everybody. So the public is saying that even though the rules are not that way. And I would say this, if you ever look at polls, 82%, 85% is almost akin to 100%. Okay.
Right.
Now that seems weird,
Yeah.
but 11% of the people hate everything or just
Hmm.
disagree, or you will always find people that just do not like that. It's like 8 to 11% are just, they're always going to, no, 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 no. So if you see a thing that's like 93%, really look at the question. Look at who did the poll. Cause I just rarely ever see things in the 90s. So 82 is a really big number, but look at this. 85% think teacher certification requirement should be the same.
Hmm.
84% financial reporting and transparency, FOIA, Sunshine Acts. 84% say we should have the same rules. Accepting students with disabilities. 82%. Okay. Student testing and accountability. 80% same standards, same rules. And maybe that's different for every state. Like some states, and community belief systems are very important. A
Hmm.
rural district in Missouri, they need to teach and educate their children. That's where a lot of my family's from. Is very different than my other side of the family is in Florida. Very different than a big urban area in
Hmm.
Florida. You know, so it's different, but they still want clear standards if they're going to take vouchers. And so this is a thing that I think needs a lot of work. And I just like all public schools to row in the same direction on this one. And here's your proof point that this is awesome, Julie.
And I just want to add here that one of our federal advocacy tenets is in prioritizing K-12 public education. And we have a statement in there that says, these programs, whether it's a voucher or an ESA program, they divert funding from public schools, and that there is a lack of transparency and accountability both on the academic side and the financial side. We recognize that, and we are, champion a level playing field.
It's I think Julie gave me the title for my book a couple years ago. Is is it if you want like one quick example that in your talking points, your narrative is closing schools. All right. If you're a public school, try closing a school. Like the feedback, the pushback, the inputs from people. I mean, it's a lot. It's really hard as an elected school
Hmm.
board member to do that. And we all know that it had some financial value. It has some budgetary values to consolidate resources. It kind of
Hmm.
makes sense, especially if you're letting kids, leave. But if you're, and this is, I'm Memphis, Tennessee. Private schools close down all the time. Charter schools close down all the time. or consolidate. Nobody
Mhm.
seems to bat an eyelash at that. It's a much easier standard. They don't have to go through the public process, and that alone shows you the rules are not the same right now. So just be aware, and that's kind of a good talking point.
Mhm.
So all right, good. Let's keep
I
clicking on.
was just glad to see, back to that slide, I was just glad to see that the majority of people that were polled want that accountability.
Yeah, yeah, and Julie, it's not just a majority. And I want to kind of continue to stress it's a
Right. Yes,
vast
it's
majority. It's a
mhm.
vast majority. I'm gonna say it one time. It's a vast majority team. And so this vast majority should give you a lot of confidence, that you can stand up for creating equal rights for, for,
Mhm.
for everybody. I love this. I was a little nervous about this. I was a little nervous about
Yeah.
this question,
And
especially, yeah.
I know that when charter schools, were opening, and just to be clear with everybody, a charter school is a public school. Um, when charter schools were opening up in my state, the terms that that our elected officials were using was that it's going to drive competition. It's going to allow for the schools to bring on great new ways of learning. And I know in our state in Ohio, we aren't seeing that with the charter schools.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
with the public or with the private schools, we don't see that because they don't have to play by our rules. But the charter schools were established to give more flexibility in the learning environment, and we're not seeing that the flexibility is is a positive, and we're not seeing the great academic growth that everybody was promised when charter schools were first opening.
Yeah, and he kind of gets back to this analogy too. I love my analogies, Julie. Is, I don't think McDonald's makes the best hamburger in the world. I think it's Huey's here in Memphis. But McDonald's sure sells the most hamburgers,
Hmm.
right? And they do it because they market, they sell, and they keep pushing it out to people. And they make it very easy to buy. They make it very easy to get a hamburger. And it's going to be very, and so that's what we're up against, people that market and sell aggressively. And we just want to compete on that. And so, yeah. So once again, the people want fairness. And I did think about this. Are private schools that take vouchers private, or are they quasi-public now? Just something to think about. It just popped in my mind. I think they're
Right.
quasi-public. I'm going to stop calling them private schools if they're taking my taxpayer money. That feels a little quasi-public. Just something to think about. All right.
Mhm.
So, why aren't they transparent? Why can't we, do FOIA requests and see their board meetings and all that stuff? Just something.
Mhm.
All right. So a couple little tie-ins, and I'm going to hush up local results that I'm only going to talk about where they're outliers, right? Among these broad regions. Here are the broad regions. Um, the areas most likely to switch: West Coast and the Northeast. The South is on a rise, and because you hear about what's going on. Midwest still the least likely because there's just not the overall population densities and amount of choice up there yet, but it's moving that direction. Okay, that's all these are up a little high, but the Midwest, don't be not concerned, but there's just less choice up there right now. Like North Dakota, South Dakota are certainly going to drive those results down, right? They just don't have the population densities where the homeschools and the private schools really, really show up. Okay. Um, no change in some of these others. They were all pretty concerned. I would say this: three of the areas were concerned about academic performance as that third target area. The South, most concerned about teachers and staff. And I think you'll see that in individual states that are having shortages of teachers and staff and certified teachers. So no big deal. The demographics are on the back of this, of our information, if you want to dig that up. And we also do, urban, suburban, rural. You'll see that there's a
Mhm.
mix of public school families, private charter school, homeschools, and not currently enrolled. So we touch a little bit, and that's not percentage wise, that's pretty close to the percentages in the nation. It's not right on. We try to get it as close as we can, by people selecting where their kids go. And then some people have kids in both. And so it's a little harder to determine
Mhm.
that. But you'll also see urban and then suburban and rural that mix pretty complementary of how schools are actually made out. So we try to keep that tight. And then we have all the actual questions for you. If you want to take these questions and run them yourself, do it. Use it. Use these tools, right? Call us or email us if you have any questions. And we just want you to be successful and use this data. So steal all these great questions for yourself. And, we're going to continue to run our national polls. All right. If you do have questions, Here's a little QR code, but I'm going to turn over to Julie because I'm hoping you still have time to talk about 2027. Julie.
Yes, I just, before we take your questions, I want to make the people aware of in 2027, in the Educational Choice for Children's Act goes live. And the Educational Choice for Children's Act was slipped into the reconciliation bill, also known as the Big Beautiful Bill, this past summer. And so, what the Educational Choice for Children's Act does is people who will be able to make donations to what's called a scholarship granting organization. And I know a lot of states like Florida, they already have a similar program and it's been around for a while, but this is a federal program. Governors will have to opt into it. I'm hearing, some governors haven't made a decision. Other governors, I think Iowa has said, "Yep, we're going to go." Other
I
governors
think
have come out.
Mississippi just did that like yesterday or
In
something.
Colorado, it said their governor said that they are going to opt in. So what happens is, take me, I'm a taxpayer in a school district, but I can also make a donation to a scholarship granting organization that would help cover education expenses. Now, the way the law is written, it includes private school expenses, which can be tuition, but also public school expenses. Now, what you're thinking, well, what public school expenses can be covered through this new program? Well, what about wraparound services? How about after school tutoring? How about if you have a robotics club that meets in the afternoon after school and they have expenses? How about doing before and after care that is included in the school building, before and after the school day? So we are, even this law is passed, it's going to start in 2027. COSSBA has met with the U.S. Department of the Treasury and said, okay, we know this is happening. Here are some states that are doing it really well. And when you are setting up the rulemaking process, look at these states that are doing well. And don't make the public schools have to jump through more hoops than the private schools. And we want accountability. And so, yes, this is coming. Somebody can, like myself, I can donate $1,700 and get a tax credit that's right off the top of my taxes, donate it to a scholarship granting organization that has to be approved by the state. And they have to follow all these rules and regulations that are being drafted right now. And those scholarship granting organizations then will take applications from the parents and guardians to have access to scholarships to help pay for public and private school expenses. You'll be hearing a lot more about this from us because they've just started the rulemaking process. But again, COSBA's what COSSBA is advocating for is that it's transparent both academically and financially, that the public education expenses are covered just like private expenses will be covered. And we want to ensure that the states that are opting in all under all understand this, that this money will be available for public and private schools. Now, it is our understanding, if you're in a state that already offers this type of voucher, like Florida, like Ohio, it's our understanding that this voucher money can be placed on top of the state money. So you'll be able to access, parents would be able to access, if they're in the private school, their private voucher and then the federal voucher. So I hate calling it a voucher, but that's the termination that's what it's being called in the media. But the correct term is Educational Choice for Children's Act. And it's not necessarily pulling money from the federal government because it's using donations that are being made. But where the federal government gets in trouble is that the money that is going out is a tax credit off the top of the taxes. So the federal government may not have as many revenues then to provide federal education funding. So that's kind of the hitch right there, because when they're granting tax credits, Well, that's a loss in revenue for the federal government. So how are they going to make that up? So there's still a lot of questions about this program. We're still learning them, and as soon as we get more information, we will send it out to all of our members. But no, we have already met with the U.S. Department of Treasury, and in that meeting was AASA, which is the Superintendent's Association, the Elementary School Principals Association, and SBA was there with us, and the Council of Great City Schools, and a couple other. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we're all advocating for the same thing: that public school expenses be included, and that there is accountability both academically and financially through this program.
Perfect. Perfect. Can I do a quick rapid fire to answer some of these questions?
Yes, answer some of these questions.
I'll try to do my best quickly, and I'll try to do it in 120 seconds. All right. Laura, yeah, the sample size of 100 per region's not great. Like the delta on that's plus or minus 9%. It rolls up to 400 is statistically probable. And I know statistics lies, damn lies on statistics somewhat, but we do follow the American Association of Public Opinion Research, and that we need 400 complaints for the national poll. We break it out by region just to be helpful, but you're right. It is not a great indicator. I mean, as far as a group size, but it's not bad either. As long as you take it for what it is. It's a plus or minus 9%, which is a little too much, but we've seen it be fairly accurate when we compare it to like regional and state polls that we do run for people. All right. So no, it's not great, but we're paying for this out of our pocket. So we're doing the best we can, but the national numbers are very statistical probable. Okay. This is a national survey, Karen. So not just an ND one. So we're good. I love Cass's comment. Some of the private schools are requiring families because to take up. So charter schools then are also private. Okay. Sorry. Or, people that can choose to pick. Okay. We do have the demographics on the slide deck. So look at the slide deck and you'll have those demographics at the bottom. And we do not have any of these broken down by individual state. If you would like a poll, obviously by your individual state or individual region, we can run that for you. It takes about 2.5 weeks, give or take. And so that's something that we can do for you if you are interested, but we don't have them broken down by state right now. We do a lot of polls for individual clients and districts. And I do look at that. I'm not going to share it with you because that's their surveys. That's polls that they paid for, right? And so that's confidential. We don't always want the competition getting their hands on that stuff. So I keep that a little bit more private, and the districts can decide what they want to share. But we do kind of roll it up, and I compare it to this national trends, all right? And it tracks pretty interesting. There's some outliers in there. But no, I don't have individual state results. I'm sorry, because we do it by region, so that it only takes 2.5 weeks to process versus heck, it would take about 5 or 6 weeks to do that. And it's just a little too much time. But anyway, so that is it for the questions I see right now. Anyone else that emails them, we'll get you quick answers. I hope that helps. So I'm done. Julie, we kept it under an hour.
Yes.
Good job. I learned a lot from you, as always. Thank you.
Yes. And if you're coming to our national conference, that's going to be in Louisville this year, March 12th through the 15th. Caissa will be there, so you can talk to them there or email them. But I just really thought that the information that they had is valuable to our members. And so Brian and his team were gracious enough to put this together. And I hope you all learned something from it. And if you need more information, just reach out to Brian or I.
Thank you for having us. Remember, you can win. You can do it. And what
Yes.
does COSSBA say? I choose public schools.
Yes.
I love it.
Mhm.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.